France isn't going broke. It already is. And your country could be next. Picture this. You land at Charles de Gaulle Airport. The elegance, the sophistication, the legendary French lifestyle. You think you've arrived in one of the world's wealthiest nations? You're wrong. You've just entered an economic disaster zone disguised as a tourist paradise. A country where brilliant engineers earn less than supermarket managers in Berlin. Where the government hasn't balanced a budget in 50 years. Where an entire middle class is being crushed into financial mediocrity. The Eiffel Tower still sparkles, but behind those postcards, a nation quietly unraveling. This is the real France, and these 7 facts will change how you see Europe forever. Let's start with something shocking. A French graduate with a master's degree, working full-time, earns about 900 euros a month after tax. After rent, they might pocket just 400 euros. Meanwhile, someone stacking shelves on minimum wage takes home 1,400 euros. The gap between an educated professional and an entry-level worker is barely 500 euros. France has systematically destroyed its middle class. Economists call it smikization, the flattening of an entire economy where ambition dies because effort barely pays. Imagine spending 5 years studying, managing teams, carrying responsibility, only to earn slightly more than someone with no qualifications. That's an economic catastrophe, and it explains why France's brightest minds are fleeing. But here's where it gets truly disturbing, and why this matters to you. Drive outside Paris. What do you see? Ghost factories, silent industrial zones, towns that time forgot. France used to build things, aircraft, trains, nuclear reactors. Today, manufacturing is barely 10% of its GDP, half of Germany's. For 40 years, Paris made a bet, become a post-industrial paradise, a luxury brand, a global museum. And the tourists came, France is the world's #1 destination. But you can't build a superpower on 3,000 euro handbags and cafe waiters. When the factories closed, entire regions died. This is the rage you saw with the yellow vest protests. Not just about fuel taxes, but about being abandoned by an economy that produces nothing. The pandemic exposed the brutal truth. France couldn't even manufacture basic paracetamol. The nation that pioneered vaccination couldn't produce simple painkillers. That's a museum with excellent marketing, not a wealthy country. And if you think that's bad, wait until you see France's national credit card. Public debt is 113% of GDP. The EU limit is 60%. France hasn't seen that number since 1974, 50 consecutive years of deficits. The nightmare is that France uses the euro, a currency it can't print. So it depends entirely on bond markets and German generosity. Where does the money go? Not infrastructure. Bridges are crumbling, not defense. It goes to social spending, 34% of GDP, the highest in the world. A Rolls-Royce welfare state powered by a struggling economy. And now, interest payments on the debt are about to exceed the entire education budget. More money servicing yesterday's mistakes than investing in tomorrow's generation. This is what economic checkmate looks like. Still think this is just a French problem? Watch what happens next across the West. France is the world champion of taxation, and it's killing everything. A company wants to invest 60,000 euros in an employee. After all taxes and social charges are taken out, that becomes roughly 33,000 euros in actual purchasing power. The government confiscates nearly half of the entire economy in taxes, the highest in the developed world. The cultural message is clear. Success is suspicious, ambition is arrogant, wealth is immoral. That mindset has consequences, and those consequences are called poverty. Young French entrepreneurs face a brutal choice: stay and struggle or leave and thrive. Most choose to leave. Remember the 2023 riots over raising the retirement age from 62 to 64? Germany's is heading to 67. The UK is already there. So why the fury? Because France's pension system is a demographic Ponzi scheme on the verge of collapse. In the 1960s, 4 workers supported each retiree. Today, it's 1.7. French youth know they'll likely never receive a pension, yet they pay enormous taxes to fund a system that won't exist for them. It's intergenerational theft, disguised as solidarity. And this leads to the biggest crisis of all. What happens when your best and brightest simply leave? Visit any tech hub in London, Berlin, or San Francisco. You'll find French engineers everywhere. France produces world-class talent, but it can't keep them. A top AI researcher in Paris makes 45,000 euros a year after tax. In California, they could start at $150,000. France has nearly 3 million citizens living abroad. These are its scientists, entrepreneurs, and innovators. France educates them brilliantly, and other nations profit from them completely. This brain drain isn't just an economic problem, it's a psychological catastrophe. And what about the promise that all those taxes would pay for world-class public services? That contract is dead. Emergency rooms have 10 to 20-hour waits. Rural areas have no doctors. Education is falling in global rankings. The national motto of liberty, equality, fraternity has never seemed more ironic. The wealthy escape to private services, while everyone else is trapped in a crumbling system. France's story is a warning. It is a glimpse into a future that could await any nation that forgets how wealth is created, how ambition is rewarded, and how a country's greatest asset is its people. The story is the same in the education system. Class sizes are getting bigger, teacher positions are left unfilled, school buildings are literally falling apart. France, which once had one of Europe's best education systems, is now tumbling down the international rankings. And what about its infrastructure? The famous TGV high-speed trains that France proudly built in the 1980s are getting old. Investment in maintenance has been put off year after year. Bridges are crumbling. Roads have potholes that stay unfixed for months. Here's the devastating irony. France has the highest tax burden in the developed world, yet its public services are collapsing. So where does all that money go? It's not a mystery. It goes to paying off debt and funding pensions for a growing population of retirees. The French people are paying first-class prices for economy-class services, and they know it. This brings us to maybe the most dangerous symptom of France's decline. Still watching? Because this next part explains why France's problems are spreading like a virus across the entire Western world. France consistently ranks among the world's most pessimistic nations, often scoring lower than war-torn countries in optimism surveys. Why? The French are raised on stories of grandeur. Napoleon, de Gaulle, the Enlightenment, a global empire, cultural supremacy. But today what they see is declining power, stagnant wages, a fading language, and less influence on the world stage. That gap between the myth and the reality creates a kind of mass depression. And pessimism is an economic tax. It holds back spending, investment, entrepreneurship, and innovation. You can change tax policy overnight. You can't change a national psychology in a decade. This pessimism shows up everywhere. Young French people don't believe they'll ever own a home. They don't believe they'll have better lives than their parents. They don't believe the system works. And when people stop believing in the future, they stop investing in it. Consumer spending drops. New businesses don't get started. Risk-taking just disappears. Everyone hunkers down, trying to protect what they have instead of building something new. This creates a self-reinforcing doom loop. Pessimism causes economic stagnation, and stagnation proves the pessimism was right. Breaking this cycle requires more than just policy changes. It needs a fundamental shift in the national mindset, and that's incredibly difficult when every economic signal confirms people's worst fears. The French look at their country and see decline everywhere, and they're not wrong. But before anyone watching this from London, Berlin, or New York starts feeling smug, let me tell you something crucial. Before you dismiss this as just France's problem, understand this. France is simply experiencing first what the rest of the Western world will face next. Aging populations, deindustrialization, exploding national debt, collapsing public services, rising political extremism, falling birth rates, a brain drain to more competitive economies. France isn't an exception. It's a preview, a laboratory, a warning flare. If the French economy collapses, the EU feels it immediately. Then global markets, then your pension fund, then your currency. This won't be 2008. It'll be worse, just with better wine and angrier protests. Look at the UK. Same demographic crisis, same health service collapse, same brain drain to America and Dubai. Look at Germany. Same manufacturing decline, same pension math problems, same political division. Look at Italy. Even higher debt, even worse demographics, even less growth. Look at Spain. Same youth unemployment crisis, same regional tensions, same economic stagnation. Every Western nation is facing some combination of France's problems. France is just further along the path. The social democratic model that built prosperity after the war is hitting its mathematical limits. You can't have generous pensions, early retirement, and declining birth rates. The math doesn't work. You can't have massive welfare states with no economic growth. The money runs out. You can't tax your most productive citizens at over 50% and expect them to stick around. They'll leave. France is the canary in the coal mine, and the canary is gasping for air. So what happens next? Is this decline inevitable? Can France, and by extension the rest of Europe, turn this around? Is France doomed? Not necessarily. France has survived revolutions, invasions, world wars, and centuries of crises. It has extraordinary resilience and talent, but the math is undeniable. The debt is real. The decline is measurable. And the window for meaningful reform is closing fast. France needs to make choices it's been avoiding for 50 years. Raise the retirement age significantly. Germany did it. France has to do it too. Cut public spending dramatically, not just trimming the edges, but deep structural cuts. Slash taxes on work and success to make France attractive for talent and capital again. Revive manufacturing and rebuild industrial capacity. Stop being just a museum and a luxury brand. Simplify the tax system because the current maze strangles new businesses. reform education to make it internationally competitive again. These reforms are politically toxic. They'll cause riots. Unions will strike. Politicians will lose elections. But without them, France faces something worse: a slow, grinding decline. A generation condemned to lower living standards than their parents. A once great nation reduced to irrelevance. The tragedy is that France has everything it needs to succeed: talented people, world-class infrastructure, cultural prestige, natural resources, nuclear energy, a strong agricultural sector. What it lacks is the political will to make hard choices. And time is running out. Every year of delay makes the eventual reckoning worse. The debt grows, the demographics worsen, the brain drain accelerates. France is standing at a crossroads. One path leads to difficult but necessary reforms. The other leads to a slow-motion collapse that will drag down the entire European project. The choice seems obvious. But in a democracy, the obvious choice isn't always the politically possible one. And that's the ultimate question. Can democracies make painful long-term decisions? Or do they inevitably choose comfortable short-term denial? France is about to give us the answer. France is a beautiful postcard concealing a financial time bomb. And the French disease? It's contagious. Your country might already have it. Thanks for watching.